a web series on mindset. My name is Tony Wisdom, aka Tony Game. I've spent over 20 years in the music business as a producer, engineer, label owner, and executive. This show is dedicated to changing the narrative on success. I reached out to the most successful people I know. I want to know what drives them, their greatest mistakes, their best advice, their secrets to success, and how all of that has shaped who they are today. Take a journey with us.
Hey, we're back. I know we were just live on Thursday with Crystal. We had such a beautiful conversation. And here we are again, about to have another beautiful conversation. Today we have my friend Twee. She's a beautiful soul from my Clubhouse family that I talk about all the time, you know. Twee did one of the sweetest things ever, which I thought was so cool. She one day just asked in Clubhouse, you know, is anybody willing to give me their address? I want to send you something. So I was like, yeah, sure, you know. And I kind of had forgot about it. And then one day I got this beautiful card from Twee, and inside it was a little card and a lollipop. And I want to believe the card said the Lollipop Society, but I could be wrong about that. And then there was just a message about taking a break when you need it, you know, take this lollipop and have some time to yourself. And I just thought it was such a sweet, beautiful gesture for the world. I think everyone needs one of those cards, you know. So I'm going to bring Twee on, and thank you for showing up. This is Deeply Rooted. Hi.
Hi. I was smiling during the whole introduction, just listening to your voice.
Yes, it's so nice to see your face.
Yeah, it has a different energy, right? When we can see each other and have the conversation.
Absolutely. How are you?
I'm doing great.
Great. So briefly, can you tell me a little bit about your background before we get started?
Sure. I am from Canada, Montreal. That's where I was born and raised. And I went to school in industrial engineering, which is what led me to New Jersey, which is where I am. I met my husband here. We now have 2 sons. And I evolved my career from engineer to organizing confidante, which means I help people declutter and maximize their space. So all the things I was doing in engineering, but for real life.
Oh, really? And you're doing that full time? That's what you do?
Yeah, I'm doing that full time. I have some corporate clients, and right now I'm in an office where I work with them. It's kind of evolved again with how things go. But yeah, that's what I do, and I love it so much.
That's so awesome. And, you know, I was reading something about memory one time, right? Maybe I wasn't reading. I don't know. I learned something about memory, and they were talking about the brain being similar to a hard drive, right? And so you have all these things like say I need to organize my socks, right? And then you never do it, right? Or I need to, you know, clean out the garage. And then all of these little things, while they may not be in the forefront of your consciousness, they are in there, right? And they take up space, and they will push out other things, you know? So I definitely see the value in like decluttering and getting things organized and getting the energy better. So I love it, Twee.
Yeah. And you mentioned just clearing the energy. That's exactly why I do what I do. It's not necessarily about the physical, like how things are going to look, but it's really clearing out your mind, your attachments, the clutter that's in your head, because it's those little things. It's like organizing socks that you're going to put off forever because it's not urgent.
Mm-hmm.
But as soon as you do it, you see that it takes less time than you think. And then it's just one less thing off your list.
Mm-hmm. I love it. So who is Twee the person?
You know what? This question I have struggled with so much growing up, because I never knew who I was. I never And I always tried to put myself in a box and define myself. And now I think at this age, I'm 40. So it took me 40 years to realize I don't have to define myself. And so I don't know if I can give you a clear answer of who I am. I hope that comes through in the interview. But who I am in this season is a mom, an organizing confidant, so entrepreneur, wife, all of those things, and hopefully friend and family member.
Yeah, I love that because it's ever evolving, right? Like that's the purpose, is to grow, change, morph into something better, right? Or worse in some cases, I guess. But no, I love that. It's a great answer. So how do you define success, Twee?
Success for me is satisfaction. It's like being in a place where you don't feel lack, where you don't need the external validation of others, where it's really internal for me. Obviously, I think we're just all in a space, especially in the Gupta family, where we don't look externally for that kind of validation. And that's one of the biggest lessons, right? Is just seeing what we have within ourselves and that knowing and confidence in ourselves. And for me, I spent a lot of my life looking for success externally or looking for other people's definition of success. So right now for me, it's just like being in a space where I'm content where I am. And it doesn't mean that I don't want to evolve and don't want to be better or don't want to do bigger things. But right now, if I'm happy where I am, knowing that I'm going to get there one day, that's success to me.
I love it. Now, is that the same definition 18-year-old Twee would have gave me?
Not at all. 18-year-old Twee would have said, you know, engineering career, you have to have a good career, you have to have a good family, all of those checklists that you have that people tell you you need to be successful. And so it's something I struggled with even at 23 years old, 30 years old. It just took me a long time to realize that it's what you need within yourself first before projecting it onto other people.
I love it. And you know, that's this definition, particularly, you know, from doing this show over 40 some episodes, right? And having to hear that question or that answer for, you know, it's like, it's really sinking into me how much that has changed in the last couple of years for me. You know, it's like really, it's really impactful. Just that small little perspective shift, right? Because now, like you said, for me, satisfaction or growing, knowing that I'm growing every day makes me feel successful. And I'm not looking to the future for my happiness, right? It's like it's here right now. Like I grew today. How exciting, you know?
It is exciting. And Tony, to see you have 46 episodes is amazing to me. When I was scrolling through your podcast to see all the interviews you've done, and to me that would be amazingly successful. You've done 46 episodes, and to be honest with you, I had the same feeling of awe and inspiration when you did your first one. You know, from 1 to 46, I was like, Tony took this idea. It was just like a mention. I think it was in the Clubhouse room, right?
It was, yeah.
The first time, you just went with it, and I thought that was so amazing. So yeah, successful for one episode, 46 episodes.
I love it. Well, thank you. So what drives you? What's your why?
At this point, my why is acceptance, self-acceptance, and helping others achieve self-acceptance. Again, it's something that I needed when I grew up. And so now that I have it, I want to be able to share it in different ways. It's through organizing. Organizing is really a tricky thing because it's such a physical entity in a lot of people's minds, but for me, it's really attached to your emotional attachments and your experiences and how you want the world to see your home or your space, but also how you're living in it. And so it comes with a lot of acceptance of what you've purchased, how you live, what your life is right now, not necessarily what you want it to be. And so that's one way that I can practice that kind of kindness, gentle, loving kindness towards yourself, which leads to acceptance. And then in parenting, I'm forever trying to instill that in my children, because I think that's one of the most important things in growing up. If you have the self-acceptance and you can give it to others, just makes the world a more gentle place to be in.
That's a beautiful answer. And I don't think I've heard that before, you know, and just knowing who you are and putting energy into that, right? And growing, watering that seed, it makes the world a better place. Like I like to say, working on me helps we, right?
Yeah.
And so that's a beautiful answer. So can you think of a major setback in your life that set you up for later success? And do you have a favorite setback?
I like how you don't use the word failure anymore.
We changed it. We
Yeah.
did.
And because when I think about failure, same thing as setback. The way 18-year-old me would have thought of it is all the failures in terms of relationships, romantic, friendship, familial, all the times that I disappointed somebody, that was a failure to me. And to look back on it now, it's really carved the way for me being a better person, or me being more considerate, me growing into a person that I wanted to be. And I say all the time, like, I wish sometimes I could be this person for them then. And it's not necessarily something that you can, rewind time and do, but you can be a better person for the people who are in your life right now. And I think that all of those mistakes that I've made, that I considered a setback or failure, it's really led me to who I am today and who I can be for other people.
Yeah. I had to change it because we kept, there's all these people who are so mindful and high achieving, and that is like a dirty word for most of them. Like, they're like, well, I don't believe in failure. So, setback is good because, like you said, the meaning you attach to it is what determines whether it's a failure or not, right?
Yeah.
And you can always change that.
And it's okay to have failures, like you fail a test, you do fail things sometimes, but it doesn't mean that you're a failure. I think that's the definition or detachment that you can make. And if you think about, you asked me too, what my favorite setback is, on a more personal level, I think people would define, I've had 2 miscarriages. And so people would define that as setbacks in my life or in my journey of, conceiving and having children. But for me, I mean, they're part of my family. They're 2 people, 2 babies that we consider part of our family. It just opened the door for my son to be compassionate and having that understanding. And then it also, because I shared about it, a lot of people reached out. And so it just built more connection, So I have to say that I don't see it as a setback, but that would be my the favorite part of something that was hard, something that I did feel like I had to endure, but it's something that beautiful that came from it.
I love that. Something also for me that I'm learning here is that my story and the things that I've been through help people, right? And if nothing else, going through that, if it helps someone down the line, then that's what it was for. Like, that's the meaning that I can attach to it, right? So I love that you put that in there. So what is one of the best or most worthwhile investments you've ever made? Could be an investment of time, energy, money.
All of that into myself. In the last 3 years, probably, I've invested more into coaching programs, business programs, things that I never would have considered doing for myself. And it's not necessarily that they gave me all the success overnight or, they changed me overnight, but it was like a gesture to myself saying, I have confidence in you. You're worth it to make this investment. And then it's going to be paid forward some way, somehow. So it's something that I never would have thought that I would do. And sometimes even explaining to people, I paid this much for a program, or like paid this much to work with somebody, that feels uncomfortable for me sometimes. But I just love it. It's just paid back so much into me, the people that I've connected to, even Clubhouse. If you think about it, I haven't been on because of the scheduling, but when I first started discovering the room, I was like, how do these people meet every single day for a whole hour? I could never do this. And then slowly for a whole year, I was joining every day for an hour because I just couldn't live without it. So that was a time investment, but it was so, worth it, as you know.
Yeah, I do. And, it's grown like not everybody's there. Like there was that original family, right? And most of them are gone, you know, and I see new people come in and or someone old will come in and I'll be like, hey, like you, I don't know if you remember Anna, right?
Yeah.
But you know, she's in Ukraine, you know, and like you just it's such a beautiful family. Something I've never experienced, Twee. Like I really am just new in like the personal development space. Like I didn't know who Tony Robbins was in 2021 or you know early 2021. Like I had heard his name, but I had never really seen his content or like. So it's all new to me, you know. And being able to go to UPW was earth shattering for me. I didn't know things like this existed. You know, I didn't know people like our Gupta family. Like, I didn't know where they were or how to find them. So that's been a beautiful thing about it, right? And you're right, showing up every single day because you need it, because you know it's gonna help you. You know, so and I love that answer as well. Here's a new question that we've added in probably the last 10 or 15 episodes. I think it's important. How do you define love?
I pause. Mm-hmm. Love is acceptance for me. It comes back to that. I think when you love yourself, love others, it comes with that level of acceptance of everything, right? Not just the beautiful parts of them, not just the parts that you like. It's the good, the bad, the ugly. And to have that acceptance for yourself is really showing yourself the love and the compassion. And so that would be my answer.
Mm-hmm. And, you know, I interviewed Anil, which was a goal for me. And but his interview was so short because Anil's this is what it is, you know, and that's his answer. Acceptance. Love is acceptance.
Oh, really?
Mm-hmm. And you know, he explains it to be like, particularly like with other people, right? Like just accepting someone for who they are and what they are and where they are, you know, is loving them, allowing them the space for that, you know, and to not let your judgments or your ego or your limiting beliefs come in and like putting that on them. So I love that as an answer too, and that has become my definition as well.
I feel good about my end. You can tell Anil it's work. It's really and it does, right? Everything they talk about every single day, it just sinks in on a different level every single time. Yeah. And I think it really is the mindset thing.
I don't know if you've heard, but we're doing a live event in June. AJ and Laura are doing it, and we're hoping to get a lot of the family together.
Oh, I would love that.
Yeah, so I'll send you a link or whatever.
Yeah.
So, what small act of kindness were you once shown that you'll never forget?
This is so hard too because there are so many. The one that I've really been thinking about recently happened years ago, probably like over 25 years ago. My cousin had first moved into her apartment with her husband, and they invited me over, so I stayed overnight. And when I got there, they had laid out a pair of pajamas that they bought for me. It was like the softest. It was blue and white with snowflakes on it, and so winter is my favorite. And so it was just so thoughtful. And the extra step that they took was that they pre-washed the pajamas so that as soon as I got there, I could put them on. And it's just so thoughtful and such a little thing, right? They probably did it with their own laundry. It's not like they went any extra. They did anything extra for themselves, but it was a thoughtful gesture towards me, and I just appreciated that so much. And I know Joao mentioned me in his interview, and I'm going to mention him too because he always talks about cutting the apple. And it's the same concept. It's like taking that extra step to cut the apple, which I do for my children in the morning, and showing that extra piece of love. And I took that to heart, and it's a small gesture that has really stuck with me all these years, obviously.
This has become my favorite question, because what's really intriguing to me is most people, that's what they go to, something really small that happened years ago, right? And I include this question because I want to make the point that you never know the difference that something like that can make. Like it's just pajamas and it doesn't take anything to wash, but 4 or 5 years later, it still sticks with you, you know? And we can do that all the time.
Yeah.
You know? And so I just love hearing those different stories because it's never really anything major, right? It's
No.
always just something small.
And honestly, she's so thoughtful that she probably didn't even, like, she might not even remember doing that. It's just part of who she is, you know? And I think that's possible for everybody, just doing things that you normally do, but with that extra love towards somebody, they can appreciate it so much more.
I agree. So, in the last 5 years, what new belief, habit, or behavior has most improved your life?
They go hand in hand. So in the last 6, 7 years, I've really been more intentional about my inner work. So healing, just giving myself the space to feel the feelings, to express the feelings, and to take time away from my own like busy life to go within. And that has just made such a difference in all my relationships, in the decisions that I make, in all of it. And in the last year, probably the biggest habit that has changed my life is being able to express it. So I did all the inner work. I was really confident in who I was in my little bubble. But then as soon as I stepped out or tried to talk about it, I would get uncomfortable again. And actually, when I first went into the Gupta room, I remember when I raised my hand, I was so nervous. I was like writing down my question before I spoke. And now just the more and more sharing that I do, the more comfortable I am with it. And the more I see how much of a connection it can create. And I love that so much. And I think to be able to put myself out in the world, I have to know who I am within. So that would be the biggest shift I've experienced.
And you know, I could tell there's a consistency in your answers, right? Like I can tell you've thought about this and that you've put in the intention and the work, right? And it's so beautiful to see, Twee, right? I don't know if a year ago would you have done something like this, an interview like this?
Even when you asked me to do the interview, I said yes, but I was nervous about it. I was like, okay, good. It's like in 2 months, I'll have to kind of prepare. And even between then, I've like, you know, had ups and downs where I don't know if I'm in the right mood. But no, and you create such a comfortable space. I was excited to have the actual conversation, but you're right. A year ago, I don't think I would have had the guts to say yes. And it's one of those small acts of kindness where you don't know. You offered this space to me. That was your act of kindness, and you were just doing a podcast. And probably to you, it was just an invitation. But to me, it meant a lot because it's a space to be able to express myself, to share my story, to have like the conversation. And even though we made the appointment months ago, today, like I really needed it today. I needed this space. So
well, you're welcome. And I actually have never really looked at it like that. So thank you. Okay, let me see where I'm at. I lost my place. What advice would you give to a kid about to enter the real world?
Whew. I'm thinking about my 18-year-old self. I think create the space to hear others. You know, there's so much to be learned from experiences and other people who want to help you, but really listen to yourself. Create the room to know what you want. Know that your path is yours. You don't have to do everything just because somebody else does it. And just because it worked for them doesn't mean it's going to work for you, and that's okay. So really listening to yourself and what's right for you, what's aligning for you. And that way, when you make decisions, it's like it's the alignment and the flow that you're looking for instead of forcing something to be a certain way.
I love it. And is there any advice that they should ignore?
I don't know. The first thing that comes to mind is obviously the people who tell you it's not going to work, or the people that make you mad, or, you know, have opinions that don't align with who you are. But sometimes I don't think it's a bad thing to take that in, not necessarily absorb the energy, but like, why are you triggered by it? Why are you affected by those kinds of comments? And then that could be a good place to start for your own healing. That way, whenever you hear those kinds of comments or discouragements, you can still continue on your path and be who you are, knowing that it's okay. People are going to have their opinions. You can't change how they feel.
Yeah. Love it. So I'm sure you know the mantra here at Deeply Rooted is kill the ego, ignite the soul. What does that mean to you?
I love this question so much because it's deeply, deeply connected to my own inner work. And I define it as inner voice, which is that higher knowing, the higher being in you, when you have the unshakable acceptance, love, unconditional love, you know, you have that confidence in yourself. And the ego is like the mind, the chatter, the questions, the doubts, the worries. And sometimes it's there to protect you. Sometimes it's just from experience that says, oh, this happened before, we should do it again. And so separating those two things to begin with, I think is a good first step, but also learning to live with them in conjunction with each other. We have the ego. I mean, it's going to show up. And so it's not always about dismissing it. It's not always about, sorry, that's my dog. If you hear that. Yeah, it's not always about ignoring it. It's sometimes accepting and allowing those feelings to come up and knowing that you have the inner voice, you have the soul to guide you. Can override the feeling of uncomfortableness, but you can still allow for the mind and the ego to be there.
I agree. And this is another one that's slowly evolving. And Joelle pointed it out, that it should be dim the ego, right? Not kill. We don't want to kill, right? Because it serves a purpose, right? So I love that you pointed that out, because you know, it's about learning when to listen and when not to listen, right? Because that chatter will show up, and sometimes you don't need to listen to it, but sometimes it's a defense mechanism, or it's like your monkey mind protecting you because it might sense danger, and that's information that you could possibly use, you know? So you don't want to kill it. And I haven't changed it in the question, and I haven't changed it like because I have it in social media and different profiles and things like that, because I'm trying to find a better word, right, than kill or dim. And I'm all poetic about it, right? So it has to be the perfect word. But
it does give that visual, and it's also interesting to hear how people respond to it. You know, so it might not be about changing the question necessarily, but just allowing for different answers to be, because when I first started my inner healing and journey, you think that you have to kill the ego. You think you have to like quiet the mind and be at peace all of the time. But I have 2 children. Like, it's never peaceful all of the time, but it can be.
Yeah.
You can find quiet spots for it. And so, yeah, I don't think it's a bad thing. It's just sometimes I make sure I use the ego to inform myself, but I make the decision based on my inner voice.
Yeah, and I heard something one time. It was like, I think it was like advice on going to job interviews, right? And they said you should, on your way to a job interview, you should listen to 50 Cent, right? The rapper. Because who has more confidence than that guy, right? And the energy, that confident vibration that you get, right, will put you into that state. And then I get to thinking about, well, that cockiness has kind of served him in his life. You know what I mean? So there's a case where, now it's annoying, and you know, sometimes it's not, you know, the right thing to do. Sometimes it's mean or whatever. But I'm just talking about like the overall view of it. Like, he's become very successful in his life, being driven by his ego, and it gives him his confidence, you know? So anyway, I just really want to change the word kill and make it not so End
So
all.
yeah.
You know. Okay, sorry, I went off a little bit. So we all have this moment on our journey where we want to call it quits, when we are at our lowest, so to speak. When you reached that point on your journey, how did you fight through?
I didn't fight. I allowed.
Mm-hmm.
And in allowing, I think I give myself permission to feel it, to experience it, and then not dwell on it. Because I think a lot for me personally, a lot of when I'm feeling sad, I feel like I shouldn't be sad because I don't want to make other people sad. If I'm upset, I should be understanding. And so a lot of times I would take myself out of that very quickly and not really address the issue at hand, and not allow myself to feel. So yeah, when I was feeling very low at certain points, I would just allow. And I found that for me was more healing than trying to fight through it. And I think it's a personal experience. Sometimes you really have to use your strength to get yourself out of bed. But for me, that was on a spiritual level, that's what helped me. And then on a practical level, it was just making tiny, tiny decisions at a time. That was, and specifically I'm thinking about, I just went through like antepartum, not depression, because it was during the pregnancy where I had the miscarriage, so it didn't last the whole time. But at that time, I felt a lot of symptoms that mirrored depression, where I couldn't get out of bed, I couldn't make decisions. And at that time, if you can't make decisions about your life, it just accumulates very, very quickly. If you have a son to take care of, you have a business and everything. And it was just tiny things, forcing myself to make appointments in the morning. That was a decision I made for myself so that I could get out of bed. I remember the breakthrough that I had was I was able to choose a pair of glasses one day. I had an appointment to get my eyes checked, and they're like, do you want to get glasses? And I was so proud of myself to be able to choose a pair of glasses. And it seems so little and so simple. And honestly, I didn't even like the pair of glasses. But I made the decision. And so it's just little things. And yesterday I wasn't feeling at an extremely low point in my life, but I was feeling down. And I had all these plans to do things because my kids weren't home. But I just spent a lot of the time lying down in bed, and I gave myself grace for it. But I took little steps, like I worked out with my friend for 15 minutes. I took my dog on a walk. I listened to your podcast, actually, and I meant to message Ingrid because it was the episode with Ingrid, and I just feel like her voice, sometimes I listen to healing frequency music, and her voice is just like a healing frequency on its own. So things like that really helps me get out of. And you mentioned 50 Cent before doing the interview. That's what I did earlier just now. I was listening to like 90s, 2000, early 2000 R&B. And that gave me like the energy to just keep going, keep moving, and be ready for this interview.
I love that. And, speaking of Ingrid, I had one of my best experiences on Clubhouse on her 1-year anniversary, right? Because I don't know if you know, but she moderates a room now. Like Ingrid's like a big deal now.
Oh, good. I actually just saw that it's at 5:55 or something, right, in the morning. I think I can attend now. That's
It's an awesome room, and like just the way that she shows up every day, and she always has that energy, and she's always wearing her heart on her sleeve, being honest, being vulnerable. But like everyone in the room changed their profile picture to her picture, and she has this picture with these red glasses. It's like black and white and red. It's like a rock star picture, right? And then everyone just spent the entire room just honoring Ingrid, and that voice came up many times, like Ingrid, your voice, or those little moments where, or even you too, like those little moments where your son or your child comes in and you say something, and it's like that, you hear that motherly voice come out right quick. So yeah, I love Ingrid. But that was a great experience. I don't know. I felt it really sat deep with me. I was like, she's so awesome.
it's so nice to see people like that be honored and seen. And I don't know if she gives herself, I think now I see she's really stepped into her power. But yeah, it's nice to have the reminder sometimes of the difference that you make in people's lives.
Absolutely. Okay. I keep losing my spot.
It's a good conversation.
It is. And I can sit here and do this with you all day, Twee. And I mean, we have, right? Like, this is kind of what we do, sit here and bounce these concepts around and discuss this stuff. Okay, all right. It's the Billboard question. So, if you could have one gigantic billboard that could be seen by the entire world, what would it say and why?
My mantra for years now has been little by little, a little becomes a lot. And it's a Tanzanian proverb, and I use it all of the time. I think it's so applicable for organizing, for life. In organizing particularly, it's the little by little is the little steps you can take towards decluttering. It's not, a huge before and after all of the time. But also thinking about how it's accumulated. It's just over the years, it's taken 20, 30, 40 years of accumulating all these things. So reminding yourself that it's been a journey. And then in life too, it's not necessarily doing the big gestures all of the time. I think those are really great, but it's really the little things that you do every day, the little actions, little kind gestures, little habits that you create for yourself that's going to make the difference.
I agree. 1% growth, right? 1% growth, and then the compound effect of that. I mean, that I love that. I actually love that because it sums all of that up in that saying, right? Little by little becomes a lot. Is that what it was?
Yeah, little by little, a little becomes a lot. And it's also when you think it's overwhelming, when you think it's too much, just start with one thing. So you'll get there. And it's more than, even if you do one thing, that 1%, it's more than you would have done if you did nothing. And sometimes doing nothing is the 1% because you need the rest. So
agree.
All encompassing.
Okay, we only have a couple more questions.
Sure.
This is a new one that I've added to, but I like this one. If you could give a gift to a single gift to every person in the world, what would it be?
Well, I'm just going to come back to it. It seems too easy, but acceptance, self-acceptance. The gift that comes in many different packages. I think, you can experience it in a physical way, in a visceral way. You can do little gestures for yourself that shows self-acceptance and love towards yourself. And I think it's just a lot of insecurities sometimes when you don't have that. And it shows, and that shows up in different ways too. And so when you have the acceptance part, it can really take away a lot of the layers.
I actually, because it's you, and we were talking about the Lollipop Society, is that what it is? Yep. Okay. I actually think every person in the world needs that right there. Like, I really do. I sincerely do. It's such a good reminder, and just taking the time to read it. And like you said, sometimes taking that break is the 1%, right? And almost having it in a glass case where you got to break it in case of emergency.
That's how it started for me. In the depths of motherhood, sometimes you're just overwhelmed. It's just all coming to you at once. And in that moment, it's really hard to step away. And at one point I just knew, like, I need myself a break. It's not, he doesn't need a timeout, it's me. And so I just put in the closet with some candy and created that for myself. I mean, those things that I do for other people, I think it's mostly because it comes from a need that I have. And so those mantras, those affirmations, I did it for myself. And if you read the card, it's like a lot of contrasting things because you can be all of it. And at the end of the day, all you need to be is yourself, and that's enough. And that's, I think giving yourself that space to take the little break. And I called it the secret Lollipop Society because sometimes you need to be on your own to do that, take a moment for yourself. And so, okay, I'm going to change it from acceptance, or it's the same thing, but I will every time I hear you talk about it, it excites me to share it with other people, the Lollipop. So I'm going to make it a mission to spread it even more.
Yes, 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 yes. I am an official member. So, do you have a song that you would consider the soundtrack to your life, or a song that you turn to for strength?
I have both.
Okay.
The song that's a soundtrack for my life is a Disney song from The Little Mermaid called Part of Your World. Do you know it?
Mm.
I have.
Sing. Can you sing a piece of it?
Singing voice. I was hoping you wouldn't ask me to do this. It starts out like, look at this stuff. Isn't it neat?
Yeah.
Wouldn't you think my collection's complete? And so it's just her surrounded by all these treasures that she's found. And I just find in my work, so many things mean so different things to people. You know, a t-shirt could mean a memory, a childhood memory, or it could mean a marathon and a big accomplishment that you've made, or it could be just something that you've had for 20 years and you don't want to get rid of. And so to take that away from people sometimes, it impacts them more than you think. And so when I work with people, I like to give them the space to define, you know, what it means to them. And I just think the treasure of collections, I love that a fork can mean an eating utensil or brushing your hair with it. And also the part of your world where she's in this beautiful ocean, which I consider, you know, like that would be a dream to be in this magical world, but she wants to be out where she doesn't, it's new to her, where it's something that we might take for granted or take advantage of sometimes. So I just love all of the concepts behind that song. And it's Disney, so how could it not uplift you?
I think in 7th grade we did, like in our choir class, we did all of the songs from Little Mermaid, because they all have like this
It's the best
Caribbean feel.
soundtrack.
Yeah. So, and then the one you turned to for strength, what was that?
The one I turn to for strength is called Weak in the Knees. It's the SWV song. Yeah. So that's a little bit ironic, but it's a song that I used to sing to my grandmother. My grandmother had cancer, and for 1 year after I graduated, I was able to just stay with her. I didn't get a job, and so I was able to just be with her. And I don't want to say take care of her, because it was just like keeping her company. And that was a song that I used to sing when I took her to the bathroom, and like sometimes it would take a long time, so she would ask me to sing songs to her, and that was like one of the ones, I don't know, I guess at the time that was on my mind all of the time. And she would just sing along even though she knew nothing about, you know, R&B, or it didn't interest her, that genre of music, but it became our song. And so now when I have moments of weakness, that's what I think of, because my grandmother was so gentle. Like, she was not the aggressive strength that you think of, but for me, she had so much strength, and she just did everything with such grace and kindness, and loved everybody and everything around her. And so, yeah, it gives me a lot of love to go on.
Well, sending love to your grandmother, and I love that song. Love, 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 love. The lead singer in SWV, her name is Coco. She's one of my favorite voices of all time. Yeah. She's like an angel. So I love it. So lastly, Twee, is there anything we can do to support you?
Something that you can do to support me, actually, is help me start my own podcast. Because I have one. It's 4 episodes deep. Started 2 years ago. It's called The Story Behind It. And it's talking to people about their belongings, something that they keep and they cherish, something that they're ready to let go of. And I just really want to hear people's stories about their stuff. I think there's so much behind it, so much meaning and feelings and emotions. And I would also like to create a place to honor that for people. So
absolutely. You know, I got you back, sister. No problem. We'll connect offline and just let me know what support you need. And I got you.
Lovely. Thank you.
Well, this has been beautiful, amazing, as I knew it would be. You're such a great soul, and I'm honored to have met you and to know you. And I appreciate you from the bottom of my heart for taking the time to do this. So thank you, Twee.
Yeah, the feeling is mutual. I mean, the space that you've created, and for me to look through all those episodes and see all the familiar faces and see the conversations that you've had, it's so beautiful. And you never know what story is going to affect a person who needs it right at that moment. So thank you. Thank you for always seeing me and listening to me and hearing me when I have the courage to speak up.
You're welcome. Yeah, you have a beautiful Sunday.
Thank you. You too.
All right, man. So there we go. I don't even know how many episodes. I think this is episode 3, season 6. The conversations are just getting better and better. The more we do this, the more commonalities I see, the more I learn, the more I grow. You know, so thank you to every single one of you that tunes into this show, man, because I don't get anything out of it. Well, okay, that's not true. I get to learn, you know, but I can have these conversations off camera. You know, I do it for you. I do it for, you know, the betterment of the world. So follow us on Facebook, Instagram, the website, you know, like the page, subscribe, share, do whatever I'm supposed to do here, this call of action thing. Just check us out or come back. Love you guys. Have an amazing Sunday.